Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. Again, we are very excited and thankful to the Global Innovation Management Institute that is allowing us to have this space from the IXL Center on the energy transition network that we are building to share one of the most exciting speakers, I will say, in the green hydrogen industry that we have today. So let me introduce Hector Maza. So we have him with us today. He is the Vice President of Partnerships, Stacks, and Enterprise Sales at Plug Power. He actually started in this company, and of course, this Hector, whenever you feel that is needed, but Hector actually sold GIMI ELX to Plug Power, and that created the electrolyzer division in the company. He is a global leader in clean energy and technology. He has more than 2 decades of experience driving international sales, driving business development across different industries like touch screens, material science, clean energy, and of course, much more. He's also have a lot of experience and expertise on sourcing and supply chain management, technology and operations transfer, executive leadership, and global market reach. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and an MBA from the University of Hartford. He also has multiple certifications from Stanford, the University of California, Berkeley, and others. So thank you very much, Hector, for being here. So the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Carolina. The pleasure is mine. And thank you, Itendra, and the whole IXL group. I am very excited to be part of this once again. I think it's been some time, and I really want to catch up and provide a little bit of my 2 cents on this topic. So energy transition is upon us, and it's very exciting. We are very hard at work on it, and I'd like to just share with you some of the knowledge that has been acquired by me in the last a little bit over 10 years in this matter. So with nothing else to go, I think I should just start the presentation. I hope everybody can see it and it's visible today, and I'm going to start pacing through it. So the first thing that everybody asks, like, we want global warming to stop. How do we do that? And why don't we just go to batteries? Everybody knows it. It's perfect. It's easy. It's a known technology. Well, there are many challenges. Of course, we have to mine the earth. We have a very high cost of ownership, total cost of ownership. I'm not talking about just the cost of the lithium itself, but everything, the whole cycle. It's hard to recycle. It's not cheap, as I said before. Today has a limit of 3,500 cycles, just like your cell phone, just like your laptop. Everybody has a laptop that plugs into the wall, and in order to continue working, that's exactly what happens with lithium-ion batteries limit today. Then people say, well, but I can do. I hate to wait 11.5 hours for my car to charge up. Oh, but I can do a fast charger. Well, when you do that, the life of the battery shortens even further. So instead of having 3,500 cycles, you might have much less than that. Well, let's look at the lithium-ion example really quickly. So why don't we take a Tesla or any EV car? What is it? What do we have there? Well, we have about 288 batteries at the base of that car. Well, that's one car. That's great. So let's call it 288 kilograms. When we do 1,000 cars, all of a sudden we're looking at 288 tons of lithium. When we go 1,000,000 cars, well, now it's 288,000 tons. Not so easy. How many cars on Earth? Well, 1 billion cars. All right. Now we need more lithium that Earth has. Well, it doesn't matter, because tomorrow we'll have an asteroid that comes into Earth, and we can just mine it from there. It's going to be fine. Great. If we could mine it all for the 1 billion cars on Earth, it would take us about 360 years to get there. We don't have 360 years. We don't have 30 years. Let's put it clearly. So at the end of the day, lithium, it's a nice bridge to the solution, but it's not the solution. So looking at hydrogen, and this is a very passionate topic for me. What is green hydrogen? There's so many colors. You have brown, gray, blue, etc. This is a quick definition. So when we're getting hydrogen from coal, we call it brown. When it's from natural gas, basically with a steam methane reformer, we break up the molecule of methane, which everybody knows is CH4. We just put pressure and temperature, it breaks up, and now we have your hydrogen. The problem is what resides behind it is carbon. But that carbon molecule it's unstable, has to look for something, and picks up oxygen and creates CO2. So that's not a good way of making hydrogen. The best way of making hydrogen today is green hydrogen by electrolysis. There's many methods of electrolysis proven for 90 years, etc. We happen to be upon one of the best, which is called PEM, proton exchange membrane. So as I said before, just to recap, we're today a fairly large company, publicly traded for over 20 years. We have over 60,000 systems working every day, being refueled. That means we refuel 60,000 kilograms every single day. One forklift truck takes in 1 kilogram of hydrogen, and it can run for 8 hours, opposed to a battery that runs 7 hours very nicely, and the eighth hour starts really going slower, can't lift higher, etc., etc. And that's how we sell. We sell productivity at the end of the day. So we are our own best customer because we consume 50 tons of hydrogen a day. We just invested in this facility in Rochester, New York, and we're talking now about 1 million square feet in production all over the US. You can read the data. I don't want to go too much through this. I want to focus more on how do we look at the solution. Solution is you go from green electrons, which could come from either, and I'm sorry if you can't see very well the screen, but sun is starting to shine. I hope that looks a little bit better. Sorry. So we go from green electrons from wind turbines, solar, hydropower, all the way through. We convert those electrons into hydrogen again by using electrolysis. Then we cryogenically liquefy it. We put it in cryogenic tanks. We move it around, distribute it to locations where we have put an infrastructure with proper tanks, manifolds, evaporators, etc., to then dispense it. The dispensing of hydrogen happens for a forklift truck in 2 minutes to dispense 1 kilogram. In a car, it's about 3 to 5 minutes, and that dispenses 6 kilograms, which allows you to go 400 miles or 600 kilometers. That's what we're used to. We're used to going to the gas station, filling up in 3 minutes, and off we go. We don't have to worry about cycles. So we don't have to worry about this eventually not losing its efficiency. There's very little of that compared to what we have on the battery side. So we are an end-to-end state-of-the-art hydrogen provider, but we also provide any piece of this puzzle to whoever wants it. So this is the hydrogen generation at its base. For people who are not familiar with it, you basically just break up the molecule of water. So you start with 0 carbon and you end with 0 carbon at the end, and your only byproduct is water. Very simple, and can be very lightly displaced to anywhere in the world. This is what it looks like. It's basically a stack that's about 2 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet. And this is 1 megawatt of intake of energy. That produces about 425 kilograms per day. 425 kilograms per day. So when we go to the various different industries, because let's face it, everybody thinks of cars. Cars are the smallest of our problems. The biggest of our problems is industry. What industries? We're going to see them very soon. So we need different sizes for those industries. One megawatt's about half a ton, 5 megawatts about 2 tons, and 10 megawatts, of course, about 5 tons. This is what the actual product looks like. This is one electrolyzer of 1 megawatt. It's about one container. A typical C container fits everything in there: water purification, gas separation. We produce at 40 bars, so that's about 600 psi. So it's already pre-compressed, so you can go on to the next part of your process, whether you're making ammonia, methanol, whatever you have, right? This is a 5 megawatt module, and that starts looking more like a train or a track. So we can replicate this track by putting, of course, your transformer and rectifier at the front end, because you were taking power directly from the grid in some cases directly from your wind turbine and solar array, which would be ideal. Then you actually avoid having to convert from AC to DC. You can go DC to DC and improve your efficiency further. And at the end, you see the pumps. This is what it looks like in a 75 megawatt plant. Now we replicate 25 times, and that's what you see. Larger plants, what about the gigawatt? How do we do that? Well, we go from 5 to 10 megawatt tracks. And for that, we have this kind of array. This is a 10 megawatt array. This makes it, each one of those stacks, it's a 1 megawatt stack. I hate talking about megawatts because we're not producing energy, we're producing hydrogen. So each one of those stacks produces 425 kilograms. This is the actual picture of the place that we are developing right now, the first plant of its kind in very close to Jacksonville, Florida. It's sorry. I thought somebody spoke. I'm sorry. So it's in Georgia, and it has the capacity of at the beginning of 85 megawatts, or about 40 tons a day. So this is what the nodes look like. So we start in the northeast, in the south country near Texas. In Texas, we have, of course, tremendous amount of wind and solar. In Florida, we find so every single time we make PPA agreements. I'm sorry, this keeps on being brighter and brighter. The sun is coming up. Well, you don't care about looking at me, please. I hope you see the screen fine. So then we have these 5 nodes strategically located where they can reach most of the neural networks of the US, where we can actually reach all our customers. So we started with proposing 5, and then we moved to further to 10 and more. You can see this hockey stick that is now happening. I'm not showing something into the future. I'm showing purposely something into the past. So you see how the adoption of fuel cells has happened in distribution centers over the years. Just to give you an idea of how big this market is, okay, but you're talking about all these crazy ideas. I don't know if it's going to take off. These are actual projects we're working on right now. These are very real, going from 10, 20, 30, 100 megawatts to 1 gigawatt. I'm talking about just a sample here of 10 of them, and you see about 4 gigawatts already, with final investment decision happening in the next few months. So how big is the market? Well, the market, if you look at McKinsey, if you look at every person who actually analyzes this market, it's about 50 gigawatts today and growing fast. What does that translate into? Well, it's an opportunity for people like ourselves to sell about $50 billion. Okay, sounds nice. For one company, that would be great. For 100 companies, is not so much. But where we want to focus? We want to focus on the molecule, because the molecule is the energy carrier of the future, right? So if 2 megawatts, if with 2 megawatts we can make about 900 kilograms, and I don't want to get bogged down with all these numbers, but just believe me, this is over $1 trillion very quickly when you go through all the equations. How does this look worldwide, and how do other people see it? And I talked about, whether Santander, JP Morgan, McKinsey, whoever has made the studies, they were evaluating in this range of 30, 40 gigawatts at this moment of need. And this is already dated. This is about a few months ago. So we believe the market is the opportunity is incredible. Now you want to say, well, but we have great hydrogen. They're competing with you. How are we going to tackle that? This is a sample of the different forklifts, from forklift trucks to methanol, ammonia, steel. What's the price points of these kilograms of hydrogen? Well, it varies tremendously. It depends how far you are today from a steam methane reformer, which is 99% of the supply of hydrogen today. But we can get closer to them. We can actually install our electrolyzers right at where they are, and then we can just either do a build, own, operate, and leave the electrolyzer there, and we just build it, own it, operate it, and just give them the molecule, or we can sell the capex and have them build their own. Basically make their own molecule. It depends what source of energy they have, and if they can get a green electron, they can certainly have green hydrogen. People will get worried in California, but what about the water? You're using water, you're splitting it. Yes, it's about 1/4% of the water that circulates through our system actually gets electrolyzed. The rest is just going back into the loop. So we're not using that much water. You got to think about 1 kilogram of hydrogen. Of course, stoichiometrically speaking, you need 9 kilograms of water to split. That oxygen and hydrogen, once it's split, the oxygen, it's free to the environment. The hydrogen is kept in a tank at pressure. And once you recombine them, you're going to recombine them eventually to get your electron back. So when you recombine them in the fuel cell, what you get is you get your molecule of water back into the mix. So it's a very nice cycle where you are not adding carbon in, or any footprint of carbon. And by the way, all these stacks that we're talking about, once they are spent, let's say their most effective or most efficient life part, 20 years from now, we can repurchase them and reuse them, because we want to use the precious metal groups that are in there, which are very small now in proportion to what they used to be 10 years ago, but it's still valuable. We have platinum, we have iridium in there. These are catalysts that are known and used all the time. So when we look at this spread, you say, whoa, oh my God, you go from $9 to maybe $1 per kilogram. What is that spread for? Well, it's actually much bigger than that. the spread goes from $1 to $35, depends where you are. If you're in California trying to refuel your fuel cell car, you saw it a few months ago, it went up all the way to $35. Why? Because the IGCs have the control of that gauge. When we come in and we put our product there, now as long as we have a steady electricity provider, we have no issues, and we can control a $6, $4, $10 kilogram of hydrogen, whichever happens to be in that location. We have proven ourselves that we can actually go all the way down to $3. Now, here's the real interesting part. The IRA. What happened with the IRA? Well, the administration decided it was going to support hydrogen to the tune of up to a subsidy of up to $3 per kilogram. Well, if we can produce hydrogen at $3 to $4 and we can get a subsidy of $3, that means we're net producing hydrogen between $0 and $1. We're beating the grayest of grays, cheapest of cheapest hydrogen that can be produced in the country by refineries at less than $1.50. So that gets really interesting, because the tip of the iceberg is mobility. The real big ask is to go replace ammonia, methanol, refineries, etc., for all the applications of hydrogen. So this is key. I am very excited about this number, and very excited about this. Just happened actually in this last year. We'll see, once all the rules of the game are completely defined by this administration, we're going to have an incredible opportunity. So we work already with all the oil and gas companies that you see here on the screen. We have done it for over 30 years because we acquired one of our integrators called Frames, and I'm sure you recognize everybody here. Then there's other partners that we have on the fuel cell side that have been using our products over the last 15 years or so. And of course, you see a lot of retail stores, a lot of distribution centers. So we started showing that actually hydrogen could be moving this economy, and that was before we had the IRA. This is only with a production tax credit, or with an investment tax credit that used to have in the fuel cells, which is about 24 to 26% of your total investment. So we made it work for that, but now with the IRA, it's going to take off, and we're going to have I think a slew of companies trying to jump into the fray. So these are just more projects all over the world. I don't want to bog you down with this, but basically all kinds of applications from Finland to Brazil, you can see it. And this is happening every day. We have announcements everywhere. Now, be careful with those announcements, because there are a lot of announcements, but final investment decisions, usually it's not all of them. It's about a third or less of them that actually come to the final investment decision. And then from those, you have to pick and choose which ones are really just a demonstrator versus where others that can actually grow into a massive scale. Those we consider maybe if we pick 33% of those that might make it to the finish line, and then maybe 25% of those actually happen to be a successful product, we still have an incredibly large opportunity. When we start talking about integrators, we look at various integrators out there. We have these are partners that we would choose to work with. For example, somebody has an application in a specific niche market that it's difficult to reach and they want to build it themselves. We will provide them the technology, we'll provide them the stack or the system or whichever part of the puzzle they need so they can develop that. Not too long ago, I don't know if you remember, but Toyota announced that they were not big enough to take on the oil companies. So what they decided to do is put online all the patents, 5,600 patents on fuel cells, allowing everybody to use them and say, here you go, develop. And I think that was a very smart move. I get a little bit frustrated sometimes when I see the electric vehicle folks think that that is it. I want to bring them in and say, look, this is what you could be doing. Electric vehicles are going to help us getting there, but they're going to be here for the next 20, 30 years till we can transition to the next energy carrier, which is going to be, I believe solidly it's going to be hydrogen. So these are just some of the companies we work with. And what do these companies need? They need quite a bit of technology behind it. Just to give you a snapshot, they want to know what's the chemical degradation, what the voltage degradation might be over time, et cetera, et cetera. They want to have long-term agreements with us. They want to know what their efficiency curves are. And I talk a little bit about you can produce hydrogen at 20 degrees Celsius or at 70 degrees Celsius, has an incredible impact on the cost. So the higher the higher the temperature you can go to, the better it is. Of course, you're going to be reaching 10-20% more efficiency across your system. The problem is with warmer temperatures, obviously what happens is your product may be stressed more, and people worry about longevity. We have proven longevity in our products for over 20 years already, thank God. Throughout I think Carolina mentioned it, I had the pleasure of working in Giner and then selling Giner over to Plug. Giner has been providing the nuclear submarines with their electrolyzer needs to produce oxygen, not hydrogen. I mean, they also produce hydrogen, but they don't care. They have a nuclear power plant inside the submarine, but they produce oxygen for 100 Marines to 125 Marines that live in that submarine for 9 months at a time. And how could you possibly do that? You can't bring enough canisters of oxygen into those conditions. What you do is you take a little bit of water from the ocean, you electrolyze it, and you breathe, and then you can stay on that sub forever if you want to. So people always ask me, what do they do to hydrogen? I said, well, they couldn't care less about hydrogen. They have all the energy they want with a nuclear reactor. But what they do is they have to chemically bond it and then dispose of it when they get to land, because otherwise you will be shoot there where you see the bubbles, right? So at the end of the day, it's an exciting technology that allows us to go to many places, not just to cars, not just to forklift trucks, but allows us to go to applications like this one that I was describing you. We can go to the moon today because of it. We have to breathe oxygen in space. It's very hard to bring enough oxygen for you to be there a long time. We can produce a hydrogen at different pressures, and we can produce it at different current densities at different temperatures. That's going to yield different efficiencies. To give you an example, the efficiency that we see displayed here on the screen range from 95% all the way down to this is an inverted curve. So 95% efficiencies are around the 45 kilowatt hours per kilogram. And then it can go all the way up to 60% efficiency, basically all the way down to 60% efficiency if you are demanding too much of the product, trying to produce more hydrogen. Think of current as the analog of hydrogen. So the more current, the more hydrogen, proportionally speaking. It's a straight line. And the only thing is you have to go through these lines for the efficiency to understand the efficiency. But we can produce at 95% efficiency. So when you hear somebody say, wait a second, hydrogen is nowhere there because batteries are at 97% efficiency and hydrogen is not going to get there, watch out. We can. It's a trade-off, and you have to think about that. I'm not going to go through these numbers for you, just to give you an idea of what goes in, goes out. Okay, and this is just one of our stacks. So in the end, as a conclusion, I just wanted to give you a little bit of feel. What do we go through with all of, water, electricity, what the outputs is, what the variables are. Lastly, but not least, our conclusion is if we really want to decarbonize this world in a fast way, the long-term solution is going to be hydrogen. It's not going to be a battery. We got to stop mining and stop polluting water. We got to start thinking a little bit outside the box. So in this case, I happen to work for Plug. We can provide either, as I said before, a stack or a full system or a liquefier, or maybe just a compression and the storage or the delivery or the dispensing or just a molecule. Whatever the customer needs, we have to be flexible and actually react to what the market needs. So with that, I want to stop here and allow for some discussion and some questions, because I don't want to go over time and I haven't been taking the time, but I think we're right about half the hour. So
Hector, thank you very much. If you want to stop your slides and
yes,
maybe just put the heads on, so you can talk.
Here you go.
Yeah. So Hector and I have known each other for many, many years. So Hector, always good to hear you speak and talk about technology, material science, and probably the most important opportunity in the next probably 10 to 20 years. It's a $1 trillion opportunity, and Hector has shown why it's exactly that, right? And so I wanted to just maybe get you started. It's clear that we need to, the integrators are making decisions about which countries to even push hard on, right? And get started, because every country is saying we want hydrogen. Every country's got a roadmap now, including the United States with the IRA or the Inflation Reduction Act. So every country is going to have a hydrogen strategy. Now the question is, you guys are Plug Power and you have integrators and you have to make a decision because there's too many opportunities to go to.
Yes.
What's your criteria? What's your criteria for selecting a geography, whether it's Australia or Brazil or Morocco or Arizona? What's your criteria which says that, because there aren't enough Hector Mazas in Plug Power to serve the whole world right at this moment, and will not be for a while. There's not enough capacity for what is demanded on what was said out there. So why don't you get us started by saying, how will you choose where to go first? What's your criteria?
Then, as usual, you give me the hardest questions. This is something we struggle with every single day. And this is why we went out and multiply our company 5 times in the last 2 years. So when I came to Plug, there used to be 800 employees. So today we're over 4,000 employees. You're right, there's not enough people to just go around all over the world. So what we have to do is precisely create partnerships. We go to each market and create a partnership with a local player. So, for example, I was just on the phone yesterday with some folks from Germany, and they want to develop very closely specific market in Germany. So we partner with them in a way that will allow them to reach a customer much faster than we can. Instead of us flying from the US, technicians or equipment or parts, whatever, we have people on the ground, which are our partners, and they have the same goals, the same alignment. They have their they can provide service. They can go analyze and see if a project is going to be successful or not, and they can reach the customer within an hour or 2 hours any given day. So that's what's required. You can't do it all yourselves. We made that mistake in the past. We want to grow and be this mammoth company. You quickly realize that you gotta be in India in 30 minutes. You can't do it. You have to have a partner. So this is how we started strategizing and partnering with large companies that were already involved in the green electron. For example, Acciona in Spain. They provide green electrons already. They have access to the best and cheapest electrons out there, green electrons. So why not partner with them and then create a natural flow of now hydrogen instead of electrons into customers? Now we're going to help them by providing also the offtake, because a lot of projects, what they lack is offtake. So you understand, when I start evaluating a new project, I go like, wait a second, who's going to consume this hydrogen? Why do they need it? Well, because it's cool, forget it. Oh, because we're going to get the subsidy, forget it. This thing has to work without subsidies and without just being a demonstration. So if you can pencil out and realize that it still makes sense without those things, it'll be fantastic with these things, right? With having your subsidies and whatever the government or private industry wants to chip in with. So that's the first determination that we make. The second is, are we present in that market? For example, Brazil. We were not really present in Brazil, and we started venturing out there, but we had a partner that actually acquired a company that we were already selling to. So this partner of ours happened to be a German company, large German company, which is also a supplier of ours for some of the equipment that we buy for compressors. And now they acquired this company in Brazil that already had experience with our own stacks, trying to integrate them. So now we build up on those competencies and say, okay, now we have a reliable, knowledgeable, technical partner in Brazil that happens to have strong ties with us all the way to Germany. And that's how we think we can best serve the customers, having the proximity, the language, the understanding of certifications. Every place you go, they have their own certification. You go to Europe, it's CE. You go to the US, okay, you have ASME or UL. You go to India, and you might say, well, okay, we can take CE, but or Australia, well, we'll take a CE, but can you please change all the wiring colors, because we don't like those colors. We use these other ones. That kind of, it really complicates things, right? Because instead of making a cookie cutter product, you have to have like 3 or 5 versions of that same product to play in different markets. So we need to standardize, even measures. When you're measuring, how much is a kilogram? Is it 1.01 a kilogram, or is it 0.99 still a kilogram? Those standardizations don't come easy. And you have to bring in BMW, Mercedes, Audi, all the companies together, Honda, Toyota, Hyundai, and say, okay, do you all agree this is the way to measure it? Okay, at what temperature, at what, boom, boom, and now we have a standard unit of measure. Those things, sometimes you don't think about them, but when you're talking about gas, which is compressible and changes with temperature, it's quite different than when you're doing liquid. Anyway, so I think I diverted too much, but at the end of the day, it's quite large. The question you just asked me is a very deep and an interesting one, and we have literally hundreds of people chasing after this question. How do we determine, is this the right investment of our time to put into that company that's going to develop the next electrolyzer that's going to be floating on a platform in the ocean next to this wind turbine and just piping in straight in hydrogen to shore? Well, it sounds exciting. Where's the justification? Let's do the math. Oh, wow. You know what? It pencils out much better than what we thought. Let's go after it. And now we have a company called Life in France doing this. So these are companies that you have to really get into the technicalities. And that's why I showed that one screen where you see all these numbers, because you have to go through the numbers and realize if it's going to make sense or not, because there are a lot of pet projects from many governments that which want to show they're being green. And we want to go after the scalability of it.
Yes, Hector, let me just push on that question a little harder because it's an important question. Let's say you are able to say there's green electrons available at a certain price point and cost, and you say there's a certain number of off-takers out there, which kind of gives confidence. And now you know there's a curve that we are on where some of this has to be subsidized also, because the price is still going to be high for a certain amount of time until we get to scale, until we get to some volume or whatever. And so as you go to the narrower picture, we're saying we want this. What is the lipstick the local region has to put on to say, now we've got two regions which have got off-takers. We've got two regions which have got green electrons. Now, how are you more attractive? What do they have to do to show a space? Do they have to show government subsidies? Do they have to show, what do they have to show which says, I'm going to choose this area over another one? Because this is the challenge right now. Everybody's asking for this thing, and your attention, you're going to make a decision. And would like to, it would be helpful for people to say, how do you make that decision so that people either withdraw the application or actually are better prepared by making the investment now to get ready for talking to you guys, saying, come over here, help us with your integrator.
So
what could they do?
I think we have to look at what is the next best alternative, right, in that market. So if the next best alternative is diesel, okay, what's the cost of somebody just going to diesel? Let's go simple. You know, I want a generator here. I have a data center over there. Diesel is easy to come by. Let's just buy diesel. Of course, legislation from governments helps tremendously. And if you are in Europe or if you are in the US, you're going to have, especially in Europe, you're going to be having a harder time installing a new diesel plant to support the data center than if you come in with a fuel cell. So yeah, you have to understand what is the level of support you're going to get from the government. But as I said before, the first thing we do is we pencil it out. Can we make it work? Can we make it work close enough, in parallel, or even better cost of ownership, total cost of ownership, I'm talking, than what they're using today, the best alternative. So give me an example, Amazon. To Amazon, we said, okay, we have tons of distribution centers out there. It's huge, whatever, fine. Can we make it cheaper for their operation to operate with hydrogen than with a battery? Show me. So then we went through the motions and understanding, okay, how much time does it take me to charge a battery? Okay, it's 8 hours. So that means that I have a 3-shift run. I need to have 4 sets of batteries. One is always charging, or 3 sets of batteries. One is charging, one is fully charged, and one is on the vehicle. When the vehicle comes in with very low charge, we got to grab one of those heavy batteries and replace it into the forklift truck. It takes us 29 minutes to do that. Okay, can I save those 29 minutes, or maybe 27 of those 29 minutes? Can I save them for productivity purposes? Yes. Okay, let's see, how much is that? How much space, I'm sorry, how much space are those batteries taking of the warehouse, the distribution center? It's quite a bit of space. Well, that could also be monetized because now you can store more things and you don't have to have the batteries there. Okay, how much energy are you consuming in that data center by charging all those batteries? Okay, and you start adding it up, and then you realize, oh, you know what? We can actually save money. And if we save $1 to that customer, and in somewhere else we're not going to save nothing, that customer is going to be a more profitable customer for us. So therefore, profits are going to drive us. Now, if on top of that you throw in, well, the government is going to give you the investment tax credit and da-da-da. Okay, now it's 24-25% instead of the meager 6% that I was calculating. Great. And then you make a decision, because now this is a very interesting time for Plug. Investors are tired of seeing a company grow, and not have the same growth on the profits. So now they're demanding profitability. So now our criteria for going after projects is not how big is this project going to get, is this going to be profitable? Can it stand on its own? And if the answer is yes, okay, let's go after that one. If this one is more profitable than that one, we're going to go with this one. Why? Because we have investors, and those investors are going to limit our ability to react to sudden changes when things don't go the right way. So we have to go for the most profitable potential business. I know this is not what the green people want to hear. We have been on that track for 20 years. Now we have to get real and show, okay, we're selling $1 billion a year. That's great. We're the biggest one out there. Are you profitable? Don't worry. Amazon was not profitable for 20 years. Or, you know what? that just takes you so far. At some point, you have to come up with profits, and this is
Hector,
what.
let's very clear. So let's hammer down on the opportunity itself. There's the whole value chain for producing hydrogen.
Yeah.
And let's say you get the electrons and all the way out to the production of hydrogen. When you look at the capex, you had said $50 billion of capex will generate almost $1 trillion of opportunity in the future. Beautiful. I love that slide. Right. And it makes me get very excited about the off-taker opportunities and everything else downstream. But my question is, if you were, there's two components. One is capex and opex. And thinking of the value chain of the whole green production, electrons coming in to the point hydrogen comes out somewhere in storage and care. Where is the capex, the heavy cost structures in the capex that you see that are the challenges? And then maybe talk about also opex later. But first, let's talk about capex. Where is the most expensive? Is it the cement you got to put on the floor to make everything out there?
Yep.
Construction.
Yep.
Where is the capex?
You got it. You got it. Is the EPC part, because steel is steel. Concrete is concrete. You're not going to be able to reduce those much, and you're going to need them in a large scale. But what I go back to is when you do a pie chart analysis and you understand how much am I spending on OPEX, how much is it CAPEX, and then how much of that CAPEX is really not linked to me making the equipment that makes the hydrogen. It's actually linked to the EPC work that has to happen for us to have a slab of concrete and all the piping and everything else, and the permitting, which creates time. And that time could be from the time I shake hands with somebody and to the moment I get a PO, typically it's 18 to 36 months. But then when we actually break ground and we start the project, it might take another 12 to 24 months to finish. It depends on the size of it. That's quite a big of an investment in time, and that's also money, right? So once you start looking at total cost of ownership at the whole pie chart, you realize how little we affect with our own CAPEX of our own electrolyzer or stack or even the balance of plant of that. You really have to start looking at the whole thing, and you start looking at EPC could take you 30% of the total project. And you're like, wow, okay, how much I am of that project? Well, you know what? You're not that big. You're actually another 30% of the equation. Okay, and what's the rest? Well, the cost of an energy. Are you buying electrons at 2 cents a kilowatt hour, or are you buying electrons at 10 cents a kilowatt hour? And that's going to make that's really going to move the needle. So when I typically used to talk to customers which were in the 1 megawatt range or lower than 1 megawatt, I always only talked about my CAPEX. Because nothing else was there. You would drop in a container almost anywhere, plug it to the wall, and off it works. So we're doing this project in California, and it's a refueling station, which the CEC, the California Energy Commission, supported. And we're very happy because, these guys gave $100 million to this development of the first 50 hydrogen refueling stations in California. Great. We have the site, we have everything, and we're ready to go, and we're about to place the unit down. And then we realized that our energy is 400 yards that way, because no gas station has 1 megawatt of power to it. I can guarantee you that. But nobody thought of that. And you go like, well, now I have to bring power from that transformer, which is 400 yards away. Okay, that's a lot of copper. Forget about that. We have to cross over the highway. Oh, now I have to go to a California agency to allow me to go over the highway or under the highway with cables that are going to carry 1 megawatt of power. Boom. And then is when it hit us. And we realized, oh my gosh, we control less than 25% of the cost of this thing. And all these other things are affecting us so much more. We have to look at the project itself. And that's when our mindset turned and said, we cannot do fully decentralized locations everywhere. Every gas station having their own electrolyzer and off we go. No. Now you have to think about how it's the most efficient way to bring the molecule to that location. And that's why we went to this semi-decentralized 100 megawatts here, 100 megawatts there, then trucking liquid hydrogen over to a tank that has a dispenser, and off you go. And then you just visit it once every week or once every 2 weeks, just like gas stations work today with pipes. I mean, with either pipelines or with trucks coming into them. The future to me is obviously going to be pipeline.
Yeah. So Hector, just go down that list on, let's say, CapEx. If you would just say, this is a thing where the expenses are going to be, just kind of just hit them one after another. What do you think they are?
Yeah, well,
you said
it depends on the scale, right? If you're looking at the 1 megawatt solutions or smaller, 70% of your cost could be your cost of the molecule, 30%, cost of the electron, 30% will be your CapEx. When you go to larger applications, when you start looking at 100 megawatts or a gigawatt, now the better part of 75% or 80%, it goes between your EPC works and all the infrastructure that has to be laid out. By the time you get, so and the capex of the unit itself, but that capex of the unit now it's 15% of the total, and the other 65% happens to be many other things that are not controlled by necessarily a company like Plug. And then of course you're there because the electron is there, and you're there because the offtake is already there. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be contemplating such a project. So it's very regionalized, and you have to understand that when you go to countries like, let's say, France, well, we have nuclear power. Oh, is nuclear green? I don't know. Can we consider it green? Well, let's call it pink. And those guys can give you 2 cents a kilowatt hour, or maybe 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is fantastic. However, if you don't take it behind the meter, if you don't take it right at the plant, if you're going to take it somewhere in the country, you're going to be paying 7 cents, 10 cents, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Think of it this way: each cent per kilowatt hour, and I put up that slide which had the efficiency curves. Each cent represents 50 cents to the kilogram of the molecule. Okay, between 50 and 60 cents depends on your efficiency, but let's call it in the best case scenario, you have about 50 cents per every cent kilowatt hour. So that means if you give me 2 cents kilowatt hour, now I'm already incurring into $1 per kilogram of cost before I even lay down any wires, any pipes, anything. That's just electricity. Let me tell you that most places I go to in Europe, it's impossible to get less than 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Just impossible. Because you have all this infrastructure and taxes and government involved before you even touch the first electron. Well, now you're at 7 cents. You have $3.50 to bear with before you even start. Then you add another $1 of capex. Okay, we're at $4.50, or 4.5 euros. Well, can we compete? Well, you can compete in certain markets, as I showed there, but not in all, and not in the big ones. You certainly can't compete in the ammonia market. You can't compete in the methanol market. You're going to be limited to other markets which are a little bit more niche, like your forklift trucks or your fuel cell electric cars, et cetera, which is nice, and the buses and fleets and all that is great. But it's not where the big money or the big volume is.
Okay, Hector, let me so it's clear that the cost of getting the green electron or green energy to use is a big piece of that.
Yes.
EPC cost is high. Let's talk about the hydrolyzer itself as the part of the value chain that produces this. When I was working with a company in Korea to make flat panel displays, there was always the evolution of technology that if you started immediately, the cost of all your materials and technology was already going to be old by next year. So being second and third sometimes is a good idea because you can see all the learnings coming from the first two. So on the hydrolyzers, you got all these components. Which components are you most worried about in terms of getting the volume up for the capacity required for mining and all that?
Fantastic question. Fantastic.
And the other one is, when do we feel that we are really feeling we have a mature technology, so we are not premature in investing into a laboratory type scale up?
So this is a question I used to get every Hannover Messe show I went to the last 10 years. For those of you who haven't been, it's a beautiful show. You should attend it. Has one of the biggest industrial shows in the world. It happens in Hanover, Germany, every year in April timeframe. Anyway, what happens is you have multiple technologies, first of all. So you have alkaline technology, you have PEM technology, you have AEM, etc. We do PEM, but I happen to know alkaline a little bit, so I can tell you the pros and cons of those. When I talk about PEM, everybody goes, wait a second, you use platinum, you use iridium, you use all these crazy materials. Where are you going to get them? Because everybody knows that when you start buying a lot of something, prices go down. But if you really buy a lot of it, prices go really up. So, and that's the case for platinum or gold or some of these precious metals, right? So we calculated, if we go after 50 gigawatts, what's going to be the limiting factor? Is there enough platinum out there to go for it? Actually, platinum was not the issue. The issue was more iridium than platinum. And people started worrying about iridium. And you're like, whoa, okay, let's find out. And we start doing a couple of back of the envelope, and we start going through the industries that use iridium. Well, we came across a very interesting fact. If we went after 50 gigawatts, which would be a phenomenal thing already today, we would start consuming almost 5% of the iridium that it's consumed every year in the world. Well, spark plugs take 30% to 35% of that iridium. Where are spark plugs going to go when we start becoming ubiquitous technology everywhere? Well, they're going to stop, and they're going to just transition over to fuel cells instead of being internal combustion engines, which is a great thing, by the way, because even with just that a niche, like a very small portion, 10 to 15% of what they use, we would be fine with 50 gigawatts installed in the world. Now, there's one more thing. We can live without iridium. We developed technology to say, what if we suppress iridium altogether? Well, we're going to be a little bit less efficient. How much less? Well, this much less. Can we live with that? Yeah, we can. Okay, then we have an option. So we are always looking at material science, as you said, to see how can we move away from those things that could be a bottleneck. Particularly iridium was going to be one of the ones. I think in the supply chain itself, finding a supplier that's able to scale up as fast as you do, it's always a huge burden. Let me talk about just the membrane itself. Proton exchange membrane, polymer exchange membrane. This is something that DuPont generated a long time ago, called Nafion. Well, guess what? They had protections. They have all these patents, whatever. There were alternatives to those. But when they are building it, they might make it this wide, and there's a roll to roll, and they just make it this wide. Well, guess what? That's going to limit the size of your electrolyzer stack, because if you're going to make MEAs, they cannot be wider than this. It can be as long as you want, but they cannot be wider than this. So then when you start looking at that, you realize, okay, that's going to be my limiting factor for the module that I'm going to put out there. Is a module optimal at 1 megawatt? Should it be optimal at 2.5? Where do we stop? Then you go and ask the same people that were making your separators or your gaskets or whatever. Remember, you used to make for me 200 of those units? Yeah, I'm going to need 200,000 tomorrow. They're going like, whoa, stop. No. Now you have to invest in your suppliers, or you have to acquire them and grow them yourself. And that's where the challenges really start, and we saw that even in the rectifier community. Rectifiers always take 24 months to arrive. Rectifier changes AC to DC power. Why? Because we use DC power. Okay. So it's the exact opposite of an inverter, for those of you who are not familiar with the industry. So a rectifier is basically copper wound up, and you're like, well, what's so hard about that? I can get a rectifier. Well, making a rectifier that's efficient enough so you don't lose the very valuable electron that you're putting in there, and then moving it across oceans and arriving in locations with the right certifications, blah, blah, blah. And this thing lasts for 30 years easily. So instead of getting it in 24 months, guess what? We need it in 6 months. Well, that's not going to happen. What do you mean it's not going to happen? Yeah. Well, now you have to partner with your supply chain, invest in them, help them to grow, and that takes capital. And now it becomes a capital race. And that's why Plug has gone through almost $5 billion in the last 3 years investing, because it's investing in their supply chain at the same time as it's investing in the plants that we're putting out there, the gigafactories, but it's also investing in the nodes that we're trying to locate. So it's a big investment, and it's going to become a money race very soon. So I welcome more companies jumping into the fray, certainly. But I think these are the key aspects where you have to be very cautious about. Say, well, everybody's going to want to jump into this. Yes. But you're going to need a clear vision of what to go after. As you said, I'm going to go after the guys that have the cheapest electrons. The offtake agreement's already there. I'm going to start with something that can be scaled. And those are some of the challenges some of our competitors in technologies have to still go through. And we've been around building this PEM technology for 49, 50 years. So we kind of have gone through a lot of iterations of that. And we're basically we're falling times where we've gotten up. So we're happy to say.
You're building an industry. You're building a supply chain. You're building capacity. You're doing all those things, and all of them have to play well together. So the question here is then, who's the orchestrator? Who's the adult in the room that everybody believes that we're going to move in this direction for this sort of capacities, so that the equipment is built to get Nafion to be this wide, or the PEMs to be this wide, or the mining to start doing the iridium, or a strategy to replace iridium with carbon or other stuff that can be lab surface area reactant surfaces, whatever they are. Who's the adult in the room who's going to orchestrate this? Will it be the government? Will it be the local industry who's investing in it? Is it going to be you guys? Who's the adult? Is it going to be the Toyota who says, I want green hydrogen for my future car? Who's going to pull the whole industry to say, here's the capacity we need? And therefore, everybody says, okay, what's our cycle one, phase one cycle of production? Then there's maybe a phase two of what wider Nafion if necessary. And the next one will be this. So we can start the journey versus waiting for everything being correct to get the lowest efficiencies or the highest efficiency.
So I think there's more than one answer for that. I can give you the party line or the real. No, I think Plug has been trying to be the adult in the room and trying to tell people this is a lot bigger than you think, and we gotta stop thinking small. We gotta stop thinking in months, or we have to start changing the scale of how we think. And it's a difficult task. But at the end of the day, the people with a pen in their hands happen to be the government. Sometimes, you have here an IRA, which is an incredible opportunity. Without the IRA, I can guarantee you that 75% of the projects will never happen. Okay, so that has a huge impact. The Greens in Europe have been doing it for already better part of 15 years. They've been putting money where their mouth was, and they created all these the joint undertaking for hydrogen in Europe, and they had already the second phase, 7 years, and they put $1 billion each time. And it was interesting. It's $1 billion. They're really putting money into it, but that's minute compared to the oil and gas industry. I mean, when you're trying to replace that energy carrier that they have, which is very, very dense and very compact, you're going to have a huge burden to carry, and you have to have real investment. So that's when they started getting serious. And then you see Germany coming with 9 billion and Spain coming with 7 billion, and boom, boom, boom. Very quickly, we had $40 billion of investment coming in. And then the unthinkable. You saw last week, Germany had this announcement. Well, 60 billion euros are going to go off of our books because we can't use them for hydrogen as we wanted to. I said, what do you mean? Well, they had destined these funds after COVID to go into basically this kind of thing, pushing the green hydrogen economy. Well, there was a vote internally in the government in Germany. They said, nope, hold on, Prime Minister, we don't want to go there right now. We want to use those funds for something else. And like that, I think we're going to see a lot of people thinking about the projects very differently. They're going to say, well, wait a second. Oh, so you were basing 80% of this business on a subsidy? No, thank you. Or 60 or 70%. And that happens a lot, especially in Europe. So now what we have to look for is exactly what you said at the beginning. What projects can stand on their own without a subsidy or very close to it, so that even if the unthinkable happens, we can still move forward. Then we have companies looking at this and I'm sure that DuPont is paying attention. I'm sure that Gore is paying attention. I'm sure like all these companies are looking and saying, when is this going to really take off? I have Shell coming to my booth every year asking me, can you do a gigawatt yet? And if my answer is no, they walk away and say, thank you, I'll come back next year. They are thinking about when is this becoming a threat? And when it becomes a threat, we're going to have a very aggressive market moving in, from British Petroleum to any oil and gas is going to say, well, I have to get into that because I'm an energy company. I'm not an oil company. I'm an energy company. And that's the next energy carrier that's going to be the king. So I better jump into it. And that's when I think it's going to really take off. So I'm fearful that a company can come tomorrow and decide to acquire the best technologies. I mean, I'm talking about a big oil and gas company and decided to acquire the best technologies for two reasons. Either to build it up will be great, or to bury it under the ground and then not let it happen because it's becoming a real threat. So it's a very hard question that you ask again, Itendra, is who's the orchestrator? I believe we think and we want to think that we are, but in reality, I think the powers are much greater, either at governments or even larger companies today. We wanted to grow fast enough, big enough, so we could not be easily dismissed or be left behind. Time will tell. We're doing our best, and we have to be profitable, and that's the point. If you're profitable, it's hard to get rid of you.
Hector, I'm going to stop for a second. We're hitting the time of 10 o'clock and bring the meeting to an end, but it's not to an end for everybody. So let me just do a plug. So first, everybody, thank you very much for participating on the GIMI think tank. We have learned so much about a new growing opportunity that could completely transform the world. It will help with climate change. It will completely transform every industry out there which is using energy. And energy, if you have energy, there's a 10x multiplier of value add for off-takers and everybody else. So it's really reindustrializing your countries, reindustrializing your local areas for new opportunities and everything else. This is huge. We had a great speaker. It was Hector Maza. And along with him, GIMI is creating this think tanks and then specialty centers. It's called Centers of Excellence around energy. And we've got members. We'd like anybody who's listening in, if you're interested, join us on this think tank where we are focused on energy. We're focused on nanotechnologies. We're focused on other things of importance. But this is about green energy. And Hector is he is part of the group. He doesn't know that yet, but he's part of the group, along with many others from Saudi Arabia, from Saudi Aramco, from people from Ecopetrol in oil and gas companies, to people in the government who are trying to make this thing happen. So please join us on that. I'm going to give Hector the last word about this whole exciting space that he's in and how Plug Power can help. And so I'll let him do that pitch, and then we're going to stop the event. And then for those who want to stick around, we'll continue talking. So Hector, you have the last key message to this audience.
Intended, thank you very much again. I think I've been unfortunately sounding a little bit too much as a commercial, but this is what I do. So I didn't want to plug into this conversation, but I have to talk about it because we are one of the key players today. I want to just thank the GIMI think tank. I want to thank, of course, Intendra for this opportunity. I just want to ask people to think, once they're presented with new technologies, ask of the total cost of ownership of this technology and the potential impact of it, and that's it. When you think of that in that lens, you very quickly start discerning what's worth and what's not. And unfortunately, we have a lot of great intentions out there, sometimes great technologies that seem to be great, but they need to cross a certain hurdle to be able to flourish. And in this case, if you start looking at them from the lens of, can this work by itself? Do we need subsidies? For how long? What are the obstacles in front of you? And can we get to scale? And a lot of times the answer is not really, because now this is not scalable. This is, and we see it over and over and over. Every time we see a competitor out there, this is what comes out. I am just very thankful to be here to just want to have this reflection time and say, are we doing the right thing? And we have to stop thinking about we're the best, stop back, look and say, what are we missing? What's going to hit us without looking when we turn the corner? And that time of reflection is very important. This is a great time of year to do that, and then kind of change course a little bit and readjust, because things are always changing. And I like what I see everywhere in the world. Everybody's getting excited about hydrogen finally after 10 or 15 years of working on this. But I think it's real, and we have mining companies getting into it. We have energy companies. We have oil and gas companies. Everybody's starting to want to get a piece of it. It means that it's real. Car companies, even though they're the smallest ones, are the most visible, but they are already. You see the Hyundai, the Honda, Toyota. Very soon, hopefully, we're going to see Audi, Mercedes, and BMW coming in, and we have some of the American companies too. So it is an exciting time, and I'm just excited to be part of it. And it's a very small community. A lot of people get to know each other very well. So once again, Iteda, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks to everyone in the room for your time. And I don't want to keep you much longer, but I will try to participate as much as possible in this type of sessions. Next time, listening and learning instead of talking. Thank you very much.
So, Hector, thank you very much, and a big hug. And we look forward to working closely together again. And again, in the philosophy of GIMI Think Tank, our idea and our objective is to share the ideas that change the world. And we want this sort of conversation to happen to try and understand where the opportunities are and where you can actually drive your innovation management in your companies, in your governments, in your universities, to saying what's next and what else. And remember, if we put our creative energy together, anything is solvable. So with that, together we can is the philosophy. And in this case, for sure, green hydrogen is going to happen together. Together we can. So thanks a lot, everybody. Tune in next week.
Thank you very much.